Hi, friend, and welcome back to Marvelous Friends, your home for all things Marvel Cinematic Universe and beyond. I'm Rhett, and today I'm going to be discussing how the multiverse still exists in the MCU. Roll that credit. Now, there are a couple minor spoilers in this video, so if you have not seen Spider-Man Far From Home and you do not want any aspect of it spoiled for you, go ahead and click off this video now. You can go ahead and click the card up here for some of my spoiler-free content. If you are still with me, though, let's jump into it. In Spider-Man Far From Home, we watch as Mysterio gains the trust of Fury and company by explaining that he is here from another dimension, sent here by himself to take down these elemental monsters that had destroyed his Earth from said dimension. In this scene that we find out that we are technically in Earth 616 in the MCU films, the same Earth in the comic books that is kind of considered primary Earth, with each of the Earths kind of revolving around it, and there's an infinite number of these universes. Now, this does confirm that this is the Earth that the films take place in, though we do know that the comic books of multiple different Earths and storylines are used as inspirations and are pulled from to create the stories we see in the MCU. In the end, though, we learn that there are a lot of lies going on. Not only are the elemental monsters fake and they are not from another dimension, but neither is Mysterio. He is from our Earth as well, and far more peppered into the greater MCU than we previously realized. And so this left us to assume the same about his actual comments regarding the multiverse, that they are in fact a lie as well. And I left, as many others did, I am sure, at least the ones I talked to personally, that the multiverse did not exist. It was just part of his whole scheme. However, then I remember, wait, yes, it does. It does exist. We have already learned quite a good deal about that thanks to Doctor Strange. Well, actually, the Ancient One, but she is part of his franchise, so it still counts, and you know what I mean. Now, the most obvious and recent example of this proof of a multiverse comes from Endgame itself, where we see the Ancient One explain to Bruce Banner, aka Professor Hulk, in the film just how it works in regarding to the stones. How if you remove a stone from where it is supposed to be in the timeline, it creates a divergent timeline, something that we know we are going to be exploring to some extent in the next phase of the MCU based upon what little clues we have. Now, of course, this is referring to a timeline disruption and a divergent timeline, but that does run parallel to ours, and that is much of the same of how the multiverse works, with them just having various slight changes between the two universes or dimensions. Now, this, of course, means that she has great knowledge of how this works, which means it's probably outlined in one of those texts that she has access to in the library. And for it to be documented means it has to be observed, and for it to be observed means it has to have happened at some point in the past in some dimension for them to have written it down and explained how it works. Now, I say that she's probably only the one that has access to it, as those texts in the library that would probably contain any information about the Infinity Stones are probably highly limited to high-level sorcerers, as it is a very high-level form of power. And over the centuries, who knows how many times this has been done, creating divergent timelines, aka universes, and considering that there is then potential displacement of stones within the other universes, it just creates kind of a domino effect of multiverse creation, meaning that there is probably a very vast multiverse out there in reality. Going back to the actual Doctor Strange film as well, we get even more proof of the multiverse. In the initial introduction of the Ancient One to Doctor Strange, we see her really kind of give him a full kind of experience of what the multiverse really is, as she kind of proves to him just how deep his insignificant runs in the greater scheme of things. Now, her text here kind of comes and goes, fades in and out, and quite honestly, we're so distracted by what is happening on the screen, as it is very trippy and visually stimulating, with him passing between dimensions so rapidly, and each of them being more visually stunning than the last, that we really kind of phase out what is actually being said in the sequence. This is also, I believe, the first time that we saw the quantum realm, potentially, which I will say is a pocket dimension within our own, which works slightly different, as it exists within our own universe, but you just have to shrink to subatomic level to access it. This is much like the mirror dimension. It is a mirror of our own universe where reality just works slightly different different, but is only particularly accessible within our universe. It's not traveling to a different dimension or universe within the multiverse. And it's most likely that each of the universes out there also have their own mirror dimension and quantum realm within that same dimension. So I just wanted to make that quick clarification, as well as those aren't proof of the multiverse. The main dialogue, as I said, though, in this sequence of scenes that I just described, is the most important part. But like I said, it fades in and out, so you have to pay very close attention to really get everything that she says. So here is what she says, and I quote, "What is real? What mysteries lie beyond the reach of your senses? The root of existence, mind and matter, dimensions filled with malice and hunger, dark places where dark powers reside, ravenous and hungry. You think you know how the world works. You think that your life here on Earth is all there is. What are you in this vast multiverse, Mr. Strange? Thoughts shape reality." Did you catch that? Towards the end of that dialogue there, she does pose a very kind of meta question to Doctor Strange, asking who he is in the greater multiverse. That multiverse comment confirming that it does exist. And that is not all. Shortly after, she is showing Doctor Strange a bit of magic and explains how it works. Here, she kind of is a lot more direct and clear in her reference to the multiverse. Again, I quote, "We harness other dimensions of the multiverse to cast spells, conjuring shields and weapons to make magic." Finally, the last example I'm going to point to is that we not only learn that it is the multiverse that they pull their power from, but their power and sorcery allows them to travel throughout the multiverse, this being done through the handy sling ring. Now here, this comes from a quote from Mordo in regards to how the sling ring works. "Mastery of the sling ring is essential to the mystic arts. They allow us to travel through the multiverse. All you need to do is focus, visualize," and the quote goes on from there. These all come from just the first half or first act of the film, and there are plenty more as we dive more into how magic works and everything, and Doctor Strange grows in his own ability, and we get additional references to the dimensions and multiverse. Now, I will say that in the film, dimension is used interchangeably as a term regarding another piece of that multiverse. And before you get discouraged, there is still proof besides Mysterio in Far From Home that it exists. In the scene where Mysterio first mentions the multiverse to Peter, we see him really perk up at its mention. And I'm not even going to begin to try to quote this, but we see him rattle off a whole mathematical formula regarding the theory of the multiverse, which means that even for those who do not know 100% and its confirmed existence, like those in the practice of the ancient arts of sorcery and magic, do have an idea that it exists, and there's a theory out there regarding that existence, making it almost so true that even those who aren't enlightened, like the Ancient One, are aware of its existence. Of course, Kevin Feige confirmed all this as well when he was questioned on the subject matter. He saying that just because Mysterio lied about it does not mean it does not exist within the MCU. He himself actually pointing the finger back at Doctor Strange and the Ancient One. He specifically mentioning the Ancient One's quote in Endgame, but like I said, there's a lot more proof going further back in the MCU as well. So there is some hope for all of you out there who is hoping for the great Spider-Verse team-up of Tobey, Andrew, and Tom somewhere in the future. This is not going to be the hang-up that doesn't cause it to happen, but let's be honest, this was never really the main issue for that film to happen, as the Marvel and Sony deal would be one major hoop to jump through to make this happen. How about all of you, though? What way would you like to see the multiverse used in the MCU, and what comic book events would you like to see that rely on this tool come to the MCU in the future? Let me know down in those comments. Just as a little announcement, I will probably start limiting my opening announcement regarding anything Spider-Man Far From Home related, that it will contain spoilers. When I start posting videos again next week, it will have hit the 2-week mark of the film being out. So, what have you been doing? If you haven't seen it at that point, I don't feel as bad about revealing spoilers. I will still try to remember, but I'm not going to guarantee that I will moving forward from that point. Either way, though, make sure to like and subscribe to get all my future videos if you enjoyed this one. And I hope you enjoyed the refresher course on exactly all the proof of the multiverse within the MCU. Until next time, though, I love you all 3,000, and I hope you have a marvelous rest of your day. Bye, friend!